Well, anyways, guys, hey, JT's mixtape episode 3 or volume 3. I got Brian Demon Racers back, and we've got a whole slew of videos. We'll see which ones we get to, but I mean, so far this has been a lot of fun for Brian and I. And what have you got any reaction back, Brian, from some of the videos we've done?
Yeah, I think well so far everybody has like loved it, and I've noticed that people also were like calling us out on the last video, the San Francisco one. They're like, it's a retaining wall. Like I
Oh
see that
yeah.
over and over and over. But guess what? We have better content today because we're going to show you. I don't know if you were able to see any of the things I sent, but some of the videos I sent are definitely not retaining walls, and they're like hidden underground caves and
Oh,
like
excellent.
just like crazy, creepy, weird stuff that is super interesting. Since I kind of like this subject, and this is kind of like
Oh
what it
yeah,
seems people are liking.
the meltology is super interesting, and I think that
Mm-hmm.
it's funny because like from what we're talking about, guys, I know that on the people who watch the full YouTube video, they were not coming at us, but I made a reel that went pretty viral on
Mm-hmm.
Instagram and Facebook, and everyone's like, "Oh, you idiots! Did you guys ever hear of the fire of 1906 and the earthquake and blah blah?" And
We're like, duh, we heard of it. This is
yes,
not
we
where the
know. We
fire
like,
was.
but the like normal fires are not hot enough to melt bricks.
Yeah.
I put it on the last video, and it's 2,800 degrees Fahrenheit to melt bricks. I mean, like melt them. I mean, it's one thing to just to degrade bricks, but I'm talking about melt them. And
Mm-hmm.
there was clearly things that were melted. Some people are saying it was sprayed concrete. No, it was not sprayed concrete. It's like, you think they just made it look like a mess like that? I've seen videos of them spraying concrete, I guess to solidify an embankment. That's not what was happening there. And that video that we showed that showed the melted bricks and the melted stuff along the roadside in San Francisco, that is one video amongst many that I've seen. So my kind of like my take on it, I'm referencing it all, and I think I mentioned even the Valley of Fire, saying like that when you see mountains, and I put in air quotes, that look like, well, that's weird looking. Well, you would just say, like I said, the science would say that it's time and water and wind did that. And
Mm-hmm.
what I'm saying is, when there's no preservation at all, they can say that and people will nod and say, yeah, I guess that makes sense to me. But there's evidence that there's similar structures or mountains or whatever rocks, but then you find parts of it that are more preserved. And to me, it's like there's evidence that you can correlate these different places and say it's possible that those places, the ones that are even completely worse, that look like literally like melted candles, like in the Valley of Fire,
Mm-hmm.
that was a place that could have been a structure, but it was, I mean, like literally just,
So melted.
so destroyed that it's like we could never prove it at this point. But the
Mm.
other sites, like that you would say in like San Francisco, maybe be able to prove some of the even more insane stuff from like, Utah and Arizona and all that kind of stuff that just, it makes no sense, like to me, like this, like the way the science has described it.
What was that verse in Luke 21 I was that I was sending you? Should I read that one?
Jesus could be referencing the mud flood.
Yeah, it could be a mud flood reference here at the end because it says in Luke 21, it says strange signs of the moon and stars, and there on the and here on earth the nations will be in turmoil, okay? Perplexed by the roaring seas and strange tides. So there's a bunch of like weird water events happening, which is what I could think might be the mud flood and then the fire falling down and all the other stuff. So this is the event that I'm kind of pointing to that it may be related to. People will be terrified at what they see coming upon the earth, for the powers of the heavens will be shaken. Then everyone will see the Son of Man coming on the clouds with power and great glory. Now, a lot of people are going to be like, well, that doesn't happen. Actually, it has. There's a recorded event in history, and I think there's 3 historians that talk about seeing a bunch of people seeing troops of armor, chariots and troops standing in armor in the clouds, and a giant star hanging in the sky for a whole year. Like, dude, you know how crazy that would be to be at that moment right after Jesus died?
Yeah, let me share this video. This is
Mhm.
our buddy Moon. I wasn't planning on showing this, but I think it's interesting that
Mhm.
we talk about the mud flood, what could have caused it, or was this an earthquake or something? But so here is Moon showing these floods in Spain. Have you seen this,
I have
Brian?
no
Oh,
idea.
yes.
I have no idea why the news is not covering this. Spain has been being destroyed for days now, for days, by floods. And if you've been paying attention, you know that it's not just Spain. It's all over the world. It's just randomly, sporadically flooding. And it's not just flooding in Spain. There's tornadoes like they've never even seen before. So please tell me what's going on with this weather. And also, we have a not so good surprise at the end for the first week in November, possibly. But again, why is no news covering this? Notice how this stays the whole time. Right by my head, as if there's some kind of source. Did I mention absolutely crazy hail? I mean, it looks like the world's going to hail. Here's an airport that got flooded out. And again, it's flooding all over the world consistently. And the possibility for Hurricane Patty hitting us exactly where Helene and Milton did on the 5th or 6th of November is increasingly possible. I'll just say it, I think it's going to happen. With everything going on right now, it seems like it's going to happen. Let me know what you think below. Just another day for 2024.
Yeah, so that video, I found some still pics, and I'll try to throw them up on here. That, yeah, like once you see when that water recedes, guess what you have? You have tons of sediment. You have tons of stuff just right up to these buildings. It's like, okay, so that actually, you're seeing this stuff. I mean, it's hard to imagine that as a worldwide event, because I believe the mud flood, whatever it was, that was, because yeah, there's evidence of it everywhere. So, but you see it isolated. I mean, I guess at the same time, like the mud flood didn't have to happen all at once either. So, like, you know
No,
what I
it could have
mean?
happened in
Like,
parts
if you see
differently.
like this stuff happens in the western part of North Carolina, you see it in Spain, then it happens here. You know, like before you know it, it's like it's where these people are, and it's like, yeah, there's evidence that places are destroyed, and then there's sediment left over, and then so to me, it's like, yeah, that actually looks like it. I mean, that looks like whatever the mud flood was. Maybe it's a lesser version of it, but yeah, it does say in Luke, it does mention if the strange tides. Obviously, we know that if if we're talking tsunamis and stuff like that, what kind of sediment could that move? All of it,
Dude,
all of it,
right? All of it, all the shorelines,
yeah, it
all
could
the
just
areas.
reshape everything. So I think it's interesting just to pay attention to that kind of stuff of like what causes all that. But yeah, I mean, was this back in the first century? Was this right after the first century? Was this in the 6th century? I don't know. I guess that's the difficult part about like digging into the old history. It's so murky. The timeline's confused. I guess all we can do is like, yeah. I mean, was this when Satan was loosed?
Yep. Who knows?
Actually, it was actually really interesting. I shared a picture, and I'll share it with you guys right now. I shared it with our little Bible study group. Vitali said that Augustine said that when Satan was loosed, that there was going to be some kind of destructive event. Interesting. There's this picture.
Oh yeah, that, yeah.
Yeah, and this is Zeus with this thunderbolts, I guess. It looks like he's riding on a phoenix, I think.
Well, it's an eagle because Zeus's
Oh, okay.
incarnate form is an eagle.
Well, look what's happening. It looks like, to me, it looks like a Star Fort type city
It does kind of, yeah.
with like some old world looking stuff there. Look, like you see like the copper roofs with all the Antiquitech, the antennas on them and stuff, and then yeah, this thing's just getting fried. And what do you see around that? I mean, I guess it looks like a countryside, but I mean, it almost looks like water. It almost looks like the way it's drawn. It's kind of funny. I don't know. It does seem
Yeah.
like if the devil got let out, he would rage
Oh
when he
yeah.
got out.
Well, who's to say he didn't have the ability to affect tides and oceans and do things like, I mean, like Jesus calmed the storm, right? And that was a spirit that was creating the storm. So it's like, and then, Satan had an ability to destroy Job's house and all the stuff around Job's life.
Yeah, like
right?
he sent a whirlwind to do it.
Yeah. And so it's like, who's to say Satan doesn't have an ability to create a mud flood? You know what I mean?
Well,
like,
it does say there's this interesting verse in here in Revelation chapter 12 when it said that Revelation 12:15, the serpent poured water like a river out of his mouth after the woman to sweep her away with a flood. But the earth came and helped the woman, and the earth opened its mouth and swallowed the river that the dragon had poured from its mouth. Then the dragon became furious with the woman and went off to make war against the rest of her offspring and on those who keep the commandments of God and hold the testimony of Jesus. And he stood on the sand of the sea.
Sounds like a mud flood to me.
I mean, obviously, again, like that stuff is some of the stuff remnants of that time. I don't know. I don't know. I guess it's hard to say.
Well, there's another in Jasher or Yasher, however you say it. There's another instance where these creatures that are Nephilim type demons, they actually come out of a whirlwind. It says so. There's a whirlwind that comes across the sea, and they come out of it. And so clearly, there's something demonic tethered to like supernatural wind and water, rain events. There can be, at least, rather, And so it's very fascinating to see the connection.
Yeah, let's go to a video. I've got since we're talking about the little season here, I found a very interesting little season video. It's not new, but if you haven't seen it, it's new to you. This is from a classic TikToker here.
Now, whether you're religious or you're non-religious, I have some information that you need to consider. So please watch this video to the end. But do you know the Millennial Kingdom and the 1,000-year reign? I think it already happened, and it already came. Blessed and holy is he that hath part in the first resurrection. Over these the second death hath no power, but they shall be priests of God and of Christ, and shall reign with him 1,000 years. And as you may not be aware, but our timeline is wrong. They've taken away 1,000 real years and replaced it with 1,000 false years of history, and called it the Dark Ages. It may be dark for some, but it was the enlightened ages for others. And it is said that when Christ's kingdom returns, believers will be transformed and be given new bodies. Maybe that's why all of these buildings had no kitchens or no bathrooms, because they didn't need to eat and they didn't produce any waste. And it's also said that God wouldn't destroy the world with a flood, but it would be fire next time. Maybe that's the reason for all these melted buildings and all of these ruins that we see throughout the world, and with all of these buildings that we say that was founded or found empty. Where did the people go? There was never no bodies or no skeletons. It's like they never died, because they didn't. They ascended, just like the rapture. Now when the 1,000 years have expired, Satan will be released from his prison and will go out to deceive the nations. I believe that's the time that we're living in now.
That was a solid video by
whether you're religious
by the bully Slayer.
Bully, yeah.
So first off, a lot of people have asked, where is the bully Slayer? And rumor has it, and of course, like I said, this is just a rumor, he's locked up. He's locked up state. Yeah. I'm not going to say what he did, because I've seen in the comments where people suggesting things. It could be because this guy was speaking too much truth. I mean, like he has been revealing a lot of things.
So he's not been posting videos, and I didn't even know that. Like, oh shoot, I gotta message him. He's messaged me a few times, but I didn't realize he wasn't posting videos. So
yeah, he has not posted, I think, since maybe it's been 7 or 8 months. Yeah.
No.
Yeah, and
Bully Slayer.
He's got over 1 million followers on TikTok.
Yeah.
Yes, I mean he's made some really good videos. I think that he's a little bit out there sometimes. It was interesting, like that his video. Let's just talk about the video for a second. The removing 1,000 years and putting in a false history of 1,000 years, like, that might be simplistic, but I do believe that in general he's correct. That I think it's too easy to say it's been 1,000 years straight up. Like
that, and just so you guys know, the letter I and the letter J right? So Jesus's name was Jesus, and it was
Yeah,
spelled
right.
with an
Mhm.
I, and then the J was invented later, right? And so part of the theory there is that the I was the same as the one. So if you notice that image he showed, it was I dot, and it was like I dot 634, but then
It's
later it became
yeah,
1634. And it's like
yeah.
that's there. And then we were like, hey, it can't be the year of, it was originally meant to be the year Isus 634, but then they were like, oh, let's change his name to Jesus, so that way people don't catch on.
No, it's interesting. I've seen. I remember Jason Jack did a video about that, and he was talking about that. But I've actually looked through old books and stuff like that. It is almost like it's one of the craziest things you see, that the ones, the I's, and the J's are almost interchangeable at times. So it's like
Mhm.
it like I said, I've seen it, and like I was convinced, and then I actually saw ones written like J's when I knew they were ones, and I'm just like, what are they doing? It's like it's almost like it's intentionally made to be confusing, because yeah, like it makes
Satan was
sense that if you
released.
think of, if you make sense that if you think about that, the idea that you have Anno Domini, the year of our Lord, so they
Mhm.
literally put one of his initials at the
Yep.
beginning of the year.
They
So
knew,
it makes
'cause they
sense.
knew it.
So it kind of makes sense that this is the year of our Lord, 643 or whatever, not 1643, the year of our
Yep.
Lord. And it's like, okay, so now if that, put it this way, like to go back to the previous topic about how that maybe the Bible's referencing this future mud flood. If you took 1,000 years away, and we're literally living in the year 1024.
Mhm.
Okay, so now this actually seems more plausible, like that some of these things could have been, like because it's a hard bridge to go over to say that the buildings in North America are from the times of the return of Jesus in the first century, or like or shortly after the first century. But if you take 1,000 years away, okay, now it seems a lot more plausible that it could have been, right?
Mhm. That means by the way, year 2033 is like the year is exactly 1,000 years after Jesus died. So, I mean, that would make it the end of the sixth day, right?
Yeah, you know what?
It's
I used to,
1,000
yeah,
years is a
people say
day.
that, and I remember because people would say, obviously the people who are rapture watchers saying, "Hey, maybe this 6 year, 6 days, and then it's going to be the millennial kingdom, and it's going to be the rest." And it's like,
I
I think
get
that's
it.
a little bit too simplistic. It's kind of like the whole Peter saying that a day is 1,000 years, and 1,000 years is a day to the Lord. It just means that his schedule is not ours. I don't think that it
Yeah,
really
that's what
means
I
like,
mean. I agree completely.
yeah, because he's just like, because the whole context of what he's saying too is like that you're thinking God is slow, but God is patient. And so like he's got other things in mind, not about our own calendar that need to take
Mhm.
place in order for him to return. And that was the context. Not to say, oh, well, soon means 2,000 years later.
Yeah,
Isn't it?
yeah.
Isn't it? I mean, it's so funny just talking about that when people say, well, this means soon. Maybe it was always the end times. And I said, what's interesting that I did look it up on ChatGPT. I asked ChatGPT, I said, were the first century or the early church fathers, did they ever talk about a third temple being rebuilt in Jerusalem so that Antichrist could go in there?
Probably not.
The answer is obviously no. They did not believe in a third temple. They never talked about that because they believed obviously that God didn't want a third temple. He destroyed the last one. We became the temple, or Jesus himself is the temple in the book of Revelation. That there's
Well,
no need for one.
it says there is. What was that verse I sent you? It says there. I saw no temple because the body of Christ is the temple.
Well, it's
What was that verse?
it's kind of interesting in the way that we are the temple of the Holy Spirit, but also I think in New Jerusalem, the God and Jesus are the temple.
Mm-hmm.
They're the temple there, and we're the temple here. The temple residing with the Holy Spirit, and so that's how they believed it to be, which is correct. That's scripturally correct. But the point being was that when some people say, well, maybe it was always the end times, right? Like it's always the last day. It's been the last day since Jesus left. Well, obviously, again, it takes away all meaning from the last days when when it can be forever, like
Yeah,
in
for reals.
2,000 years. And so point being is, if they didn't think it was the last days in the early church, well, why not? Right? Because they would have thought it would be most of all of the last days, because they would have been going through some of the worst stuff too. So of course they would have thought it would. But the point is, whatever they believed, even if you don't believe that the early church were preterist or whatever, I'm sure they didn't have that word.
Yeah.
They were not talking about an Antichrist going into another rebuilt temple.
No.
Probably the idea that they were going to build another temple in Jerusalem was probably preposterous
Probably,
early on.
Yeah, evil, and they probably would knew it right
Well,
away.
no, I mean, I'm just saying, like, the point is like the idea that all the death that took place in Jerusalem, and then all the people that did live got scattered around. Obviously, the early church left. The early Jewish Christians were gone. However that happened. The idea that there would be some kind of a force or a emphasis to go rebuild that temple in that early time was like, it was not even talked about as a consideration.
Yeah.
So you ever heard that whole thing, like, especially when doctrine is, if it's new, it ain't true. Well, yeah. So obviously then you're talking about, they didn't start talking about this until like the Zionist movement came about. And, so there you go. So that's why that when we say that a third temple is not scripturally sound, it's not.
It's not.
It never has been. It never has been. Okay, let's go to let's go to another video. I got I got a good one. I'm gonna have to clean up the language on this one, so forgive me. But I think this video is this is another. This goes along with, there was technology back in the day. People were skilled in things that they're not skilled in anymore.
Hey, do y'all see how beautiful that sculpture is? That shit look like it took like 5 years to make, right? Real attention to detail, right? Look at this one. Made 1,000 years ago. Nice as hell though. Look at the attention to detail. Beautiful work of art. They made this one yesterday. Who the fuck is that? It looked like Thanos. What the fuck? This is not Dwayne Wade. This is Lawrence fucking Fishburne. This looked like that monster that was trying to get his back from I Am Legend. Tell me I'm lying. Go ahead. I thought you're supposed to get better at statues. I thought you're supposed to get better at sculptures. Like, ain't no way all the pictures and references and you could have had the actual Dwayne Wade stand right there while you was doing the sculpture. They was doing this shit off of memory. They was doing this shit off of a dude describing him. This bullshit, you could have 3D printed this better. This is crazy. Remember the movie The Mask? Remember the other put the mask on? Boom. That's him. Dwayne Wade.
So wait. Who was that supposed to be?
You haven't seen the pictures of Dwayne Wade's statue? Do you know what Dwayne Wade looks like?
No, I don't.
Dwayne, well, you have to look. Okay.
Oh my gosh, it's definitely not him. It's definitely not him.
Wait, yeah, Dwayne Wade. Let's see him.
Dude, that is not even remotely close.
So if you guys are not hoops fans at all, yeah, like this is Dwayne Wade.
Yeah,
that statue is not
remotely.
Was not remotely. Was not Dwayne. Let's see, Dwayne Wade. Let's see. Let's look at that again. So yeah, like, so the point being is, like, that guy obviously was clowning on that thing, rightfully so.
Dude, that doesn't look good at all. It looks terrible.
Yeah, look at that. So that does not look like him. And the real question is,
why? This is a random dude.
Like, why not? I mean, like, this is kind of one of those things where we know in this community that things are deteriorating. That's one of the reasons we believe that there was obviously a peak of civilization. And like, yeah, when you see some of the crazy ornate statues from yesteryear, you ain't seen nothing like that recently.
Yeah, no, it's pretty, I mean, artistic value has decreased and artistic skill has decreased significantly. And, people may like try to attribute it to be like, well, that's what they did all day, every day, because they had more freedom. Either way, regardless of whatever it is, like, the artistic skill ability has definitely decreased quite a bit, and it doesn't look nearly as good. Like that, even looking at that statue right now, it looks like I don't know. It just looks like a drawing that somebody that was like pretty decent at drawing did, but like not the best. It's very obviously off. Look.
Well, no, but you know what? I won't necessarily even disagree when people say that, oh, well, they had so much time to do what they did, to carve the statues. Okay, so well, why are things different now? You know what I'm saying? Like that isn't
Yeah.
that like to me, it's like that's not a good argument because it's like, well, if that time of human history was so terrible, why did they have so much time to create beautiful things?
I don't know.
Let's look at a classic one real quick. Like just, and there's way better examples of this, but Michelangelo's David.
Yeah, all the bumps and the parts of the neck.
Look
and
at the eyes.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's phenomenal. It's phenomenal.
Yeah, so it's like that you had this, and I mean, how closely did that resemble him? And obviously, you would have thought that the times of Michelangelo are way after the times of David.
Yeah.
But the point is that you made something that looks, even if it's, even if it's not like, I think that there's we're forgiving in a way that it's kind of like if somebody drew a really cool picture of somebody that's almost cartoonish in a certain kind of way, we can respect the artistic integrity. It doesn't have to be perfect. but the Dwayne Wade statue was like, it was just hideous.
Yeah.
It just doesn't look like him, and it looks grotesque. All that being said is that, so I believe that if you, during this certain time where they could create great art, there must have been a time of maybe free energy. Maybe people weren't slaving away, at the grind, doing the 9 to 5 thing, be trapped in aluminum boxes and then cubicles all day. So, if they had more time, well, I think that's more proof that it was a better time
Different
altogether.
environment, different economy.
You know what? This one is perfect right here, Brian. This is it's completely different, but this is one of my buddies over here. This is VOR, my buddy Luke, and he had a pretty interesting video back in the day.
Keeping with the theme of things you didn't know about the founding of this country and the bizarre story of our founding fathers, this guy, Ben Franklin, was a member of the Hellfire Club that used to meet in these caves. The Hellfire Club, 18th century ritual cult for the famous and powerful. In this debaucherous underground club where they did all kind of unspeakable things, there's even a cave named after Benjamin Franklin. Mr. Franklin, let me show you to your cave. Give you an idea of what would go on down there? These things. These people were dressed as nuns, had to wear masks. Later, this, which might shed a little more light on why Benjamin Franklin's basement was filled with skeletons. In 1998, while they were doing repairs on his old place on 36 Craven, they dug a pit 1 meter wide that had 1,200 pieces of bones in it, including the bones of not good. Don't be suspicious. Don't be suspicious.
Oh yes.
What about?
Yes,
what about? I know you've heard of that. I think one thing was interesting before we get into like the meat of that. His house was on 36 Craven Street. 36 Craven Street. And interestingly enough, that where they met in the Hellfire Club was again some underground place.
Very suspicious.
One of the founding fathers that founded this place was in a secret society that did black masses. They did all kinds of depraved debauchery under the ground. Okay, so is the picture in your head kind of like slowly clearing up a little bit, like that how could some of these things be hidden? Because even like obviously one of the main founding fathers of America was in a secret society and they did wicked things under the earth. Isn't that it? How about that? What do you think about that, Brian? Tell me, what do you think about the skeletons that were found in his basement? Do you think that he was doing science down there?
Supposedly they said that he was had a friend that was a mortician or that lived with him or something like that they tried to blame it on. I don't buy it. I definitely think he was involved in like occultic rituals and probably like bad things to children, because I think some of the bones were children bones
Yeah,
that
it
they
said,
found?
at least 6 skeletons were found. They were children's skeletons.
Yeah, so probably involved in some really bad things to children and some really, really devious, wicked stuff. Like Benjamin Franklin, like I don't know, there's another video that's floating around the internet if you guys want to look it up. It's that the Freemason Lodge video where they have the video of George Washington talking to Benjamin Franklin at this huge Masonic lounge space. Like look it up, guys, like because it's hard to find, but it's out there. But when you see it, it's very eye-opening. Maybe we'll put it on the next show. We'll pull it up and play it.
Yeah, no, but I mean, yeah, like again, if you find out the things they did in the Hellfire Club, and then you find skeletons in this guy's basement, I feel like the idea was scientific research he was doing is covered
Completely,
for
yeah.
what he was really doing.
Yeah, exactly.
And like, because the thing about it is, it's like
stupid.
the mortician does not bring the bodies home with him.
Yeah, right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, there's a place where they do that kind of work, and it
Yeah,
ain't
not
your
your
it ain't your basement. You know,
Yeah, for
you know, like
sure.
obviously this should go without saying, but to me, it's almost like this is cover because this looks bad. This looks really bad, probably because
Yep.
it was really bad.
Dude, guys, Benjamin Franklin is an occultist, and it's like he has writings talking about it. He talks about stuff that are like not of the Lord, very, very good stuff. So yeah, it's Benjamin Franklin's not a good dude. That's the lie that they've painted us. Okay. And George Washington was full of lies, which is why they told you that he could never tell a lie, and they laugh about it because y'all foolishly believe that he was an extreme occultist. So yeah. Look, I've got a video actually that goes along with that. If you look in the Instagram stuff. So this those are little kids' shoes, bro.
Oh no.
Now, the rest of this, I think, is just the area in France where they found the tunnels. So I think they mixed two videos together.
Yeah, somebody's saying Australia, but it's like then I see all the comments saying like, yeah.
Yeah, but the first part is not the French tunnels. That part where they're dropping down, I don't know where exactly that is. That looks definitely like America in some capacity.
Well, it's like, I mean, it's again, it's right on theme of like the stuff that goes on underneath the surface of the earth, and
right.
yeah, just give me the creeps. It's just like there's all that underground infrastructure anywhere. Like, yeah, so like let's just say we're not going to vouch for where that was, and if it was splice videos together. But it's interesting that they're showing some kind of catacombs with all the stacked bones. And
Yeah.
you know, one day we'll have to do a little bit of a deeper dive on the catacombs below Paris that are just like unbelievable.
Oh, it's so evil.
Oh man, it makes no sense to me that people would sit there and stack bones, all that, what they did to clean them to make them look like that.
Oh, disturbing.
Very disturbing. But yeah, like to see what happens down inside caves and the obviously all that stuff is under the ground anyways. Like, so what does that?
Where do you think they got all those bones too? What if the catacomb? Because it's so many bones. It's almost like what if the catacombs just collected all the people that died after? You know, it says where Lord, where will they be taken? And this is where their bodies lie. The vultures will gather.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't. it's hard to even, for one, I don't know the numbers in the Paris catacombs,
Yeah.
but there's a lot. And so like,
Oh, it's a lot.
is this something that happened during the times of, whatever the mud flood was or some around that time? Maybe it is weird though that there'd be so much care taken with those bones,
right?
In some kind of way. It's just really hard to understand any of that stuff.
But
Because
notice
it's like-
that table. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Sorry, because it's just it's creepy.
No, I'm just saying like that. It's hard for me to really like. I have not dug into that. Like, no pun intended. Like, what's going on with the bones in the catacombs? But yeah, I don't think that's normal, and I think that and I don't know that anybody ever said it's normal. I just think we don't talk about that kind of stuff. But again, it's things under the earth, and then you have millions of stacked bones in all kinds of creepy ways. It is
disturbing. And
disturbing, mind-blowing, all those things.
There's caves, guys, and like these caves are under the ground. There's a lot of this kind of stuff. And if you notice that those cellars, those candles, who lights a table of candles like that and keeps burning a bunch of candles? And that whole table is just full of candles. And then why is there a bunch of pairs of shoes, guys? What do you think the pairs of shoes are? Okay, why are they children's shoes? Like, you think somebody's going down there with the shoes and just leaving them in these tunnels? No, fool. There's another entrance to it in some capacity, and that's because the person was done away with, and they didn't need their shoes because they didn't leave that tunnel. You know what I mean? That's why you see shoes in tunnels, guys. It's not. There's a reason for that. You'll notice a lot of stuff. That's usually because they're doing like sacrificial kind of things there. It's usually children's shoes. It's very disturbing.
This is a little bit on theme. This video right here. This is more of a funny one, but you guys will get the reference.
We got to do a lighter one, anyways.
Funny one, you know how many people come out with tattoos of me on their arm?
Does that happen often?
Oh, so often, man. I'm like, wow. What are you thinking? Legend, but what the what if I turn out to be whatever, pedophile or a murderer or something? You got me face on you, you can't get rid of it.
Yeah, well, those celebrities, most of them are. So.
Mate, hell.
I don't know who that is, but
the
makes
Ozzy
a
Man
good
guy's
point.
funny. I think he does it. I know he used to do stuff. I used to do movie reviews on YouTube and stuff. He's pretty funny. But yeah, I mean, just that was the classic response when he was like, if I turn out to be a pizza file, and he's like, yeah, well, most of them, most celebrities are. Of course, the way he says it, it's just like, yeah. It wasn't funny, his response to, like, when the guy drank his beer, he was kind of like, yeah, like they know, like he knows. Oh, so if you guys don't know that's the actor. He stars in that show, or used to star in the show Vikings, that was on the History Channel.
Oh, I didn't even know who that was.
But So I think that's what he was saying. That's why people would like that show. And he played this awesome Viking, Ragnar Lothbrok, I think, or something like that. And then so you get a tattoo of him on there, and like he's not actually the real Viking. He just played one on TV. So that's what he was saying. Like, so what happens? Maybe not if I turn out to be this, when I'm caught. I would say that. But I mean, the point being was like, it was funny. That guy's response was perfect, though. It's like, yeah, most celebrities are. Isn't it funny? It's funny, but it's not funny. We always say that. And like, I guess that's like my sense of humor. It's like we do laugh about these things, or otherwise we'll cry, because it's like, it was funny that he said that because it's true. And we all kind of know it. And I don't know.
Yeah, I had a Viking video too that I sent you that I just thought was interesting. I just thought this was that's it.
Well, that's
like, what is that? Like, why does this exist in our culture? But I love it. It's funny.
Did he have a cat? Was that a cat face on his belt buckle?
I don't even know.
It looked like angry cat. It looked like an angry cat on there.
Yeah,
I've got a good one. This is a bit of a change up from what we showed earlier, but I think this one, I think you'll have a lot to say about this. this
Okay,
one,
show,
Brian.
show.
Aliens can't lie to each other. But that doesn't mean they don't lie to us, not by a long shot. The alien agenda on Earth operates by stealth and by secrecy, often at night, under a cloak of invisibility. I think we're dealing with the intersection of at least 3 types of alien societies. We can call ours a divided society. The sense of self is limited to an individual private unit of consciousness. In a divided society, thoughts and ideas cannot be shared with any degree of accuracy or detail except through physical, symbolic, translative means, the way I'm trying to do now. This private sense of self engenders isolation, endless variety of deception. It also produces great art, music, drama. We're constantly searching for ways to reach out, to be seen, to be understood.
Interesting idea that aliens can't lie to each other.
Well, so yeah, the main reason I shared this is because if you're not familiar with that guy, I mean, it mentioned in the video, that guy's name's Thomas Jane, and he played in that Punisher movie. Like, it was not well received. I thought it was okay movie back in the day, but he played the Marvel character, the Punisher. So this guy's like a pretty, successful Hollywood actor, and now he wrote some book, and he's obviously talking about aliens big time. I did think it's interesting. It's like it was kind of a shift in the conversation, but he said that aliens can lie to us, but they can't lie to each other. It's like, I mean, so of course in my mind, I'm thinking like he's talking about 3 different races of aliens. You could almost say like, is it angels,
There's the tall grays,
fallen angels, the demons? Like,
yeah.
so like they can't really lie to each other, maybe because they would know, when they're lying to each other. And they can deceive us.
That's a really interesting point, and I would say probably because I believe aliens are demons, but their form of communication, when people talk about encountering aliens, they're obviously encounter demons, and they speak to one another through their mind, and so they speak to you through their mind. They don't actually speak with words, and in fact, there has not been a single alien encounter where the alien spoke with words out its mouth that I've ever heard of. Except for I think the Nordics in some instance, maybe they have said words, supposedly the ones that look like humans fully.
But the idea of like the Nordics or the Palladian, aliens, the way they're described to me, that sounds like angels. That sounds like whatever you'd picture as a beautiful angel.
Yep.
Like almost like the elves, right?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
they would be able to talk, and maybe some of these other more nefarious ones would not.
Well, here's the fascinating part about them not talking. And so, like, if you understand the way the world has been set up, the Lord says, if you say unto this mountain, be thou removed and be thou cast in the sea, it will obey you, right? So, like, this world is governed by the prophetic words out your mouth. And if you study demons in ancient history and these creatures, all these hybrid things, all these Nephilim hybrid offspring, one of their, like, definitive characteristics is they couldn't speak. Like, the hybrid creatures could not speak. They could speak, but only in your mind. And so we think of encountering an alien and it's speaking to you in its mind to you, and you're hearing it in your mind. You almost perceive that as like a form of like, oh my gosh, they're superpower. They could talk to me with their mind. Actually, no, that's a form of weakness. That's actually quite the opposite. Aliens talk with their mind because they can't speak and prophesy words out their mouth, because the Lord disabled them from being able to speak and prophesy words out your mouth. And in fact, if you look into ancient words that pertain to these creatures, all of them tie to the fact that, like, the word beast means a creature that cannot speak words. Okay. And so, like, words being able to speak, they can still communicate, but they cannot speak words. Your ability to speak words out your mouth is your ability to prophesy. And that's why aliens and demons or whatever these things are, they can't speak with words. They don't have mouth words.
Well, I mean, I've seen it in the movies often that the aliens would communicate telepathically. I'm pretty sure that's how they communicate in the movie, like, was it Independence Day?
Yeah.
And what they did is, I remember in that movie distinctly, they took the guy who used to be in Star Trek, Data, and of course, these things are all like got tentacles and weird stuff, and they wrapped it around his neck, and they used him to speak. to them.
Wow, look
I
at
mean,
that.
like that is. I
That's-
mean, you really, you really think about it, like putting it together. It's like, yeah, that sounds super demonic. Like
Oh,
what you're seeing there. But here,
yeah, totally demonic.
let's,
But the
let's-
human
let's-
is the one that needs to speak. That's the thing. And so, like, you speak for demons when you talk, guys. If you're speaking
Interesting.
negative words, and that's why it says the power to speak life and death is in the tongue, and those that master it eat the fruit thereof. Don't speak negative stuff over your life, guys, because that is prophesying. It gives demons the legal right to affect your life in negative ways because you speak it, you prophesy it.
Here's an interesting video. This is from our friends, the Blurry Creatures, and they had a BlurryCon, and they had Tim Alberino here, and he's going to have a different take than probably we will.
Episode, she had the opportunity to reach out and grab a gray alien. She grabbed it by the throat, and she said she was shocked because it was cold and clammy. Yeah, so it wasn't like a warm-blooded creature. So there's something very interesting, perhaps artificial intelligence, perhaps they're not fully biological, perhaps they're biological drones of some sorts. So no, I do not believe that they are demons or that they're inhabited by demons. Now, if you ask me, do I believe that gray aliens are demonic? That's a different question.
Yeah.
Because then you're asking me, are they malevolent? Are they evil? And my answer here would be unequivocally yes. They're evil. They're malevolent. What they're doing is nefarious.
Tim Alberino, he believes in all the outer space stuff. Obviously, he doesn't believe in biblical Earth stuff. He believes that aliens come from Mars and whatever else, I think, kind of strange things. He believes in the gap theory about like there was a battle between the angels before time began, which again is just it's not biblical at all.
No.
But yeah, so he believes, and I've heard him on Blurry Creatures before where he's saying like that the alien abductions things is preposterous that these things are demons. I would say that the one thing about Tim Alberino is he's caused me to think a lot when I listen to him. A lot of times I roll my eyes. But I really question how he knows these things. Because I think that like knowing like demon encounters, and obviously Brian knows it better than probably anybody I know, that things could be physical and you just like in your memory. So it's like unless you were there to see it, like the way he talks with such certainty about these kind of subjects, that I feel like that does the lack of humility in the way he describes these things.
That's key.
Does make me question how truthful he is, because it's kind of like that. If somebody told me that they choked a gray alien, I would have to take that with a grain of salt, and I would not go change my whole worldview based on somebody saying that. You know, so like unless you witnessed it, and he would talk about like I know that he talked about the different types of aliens. I think he called them insectoids and all kinds of weird things like praying mantis looking aliens and gray aliens. And I'll give it to you, Brian. It's like, what do you think about that? Like that he's obviously saying that these things are just a different race of things. I mean, I guess, did God create them? Like I don't really know what else he says past that.
Yeah, I completely disagree with that guy, completely, entirely. And I'll tell you why. Because number one, the way he speaks with such pride. He's so full of pride and arrogance. I know he's being communicated by demons. Like that man is talking for demons. So like when somebody begins to speak like that, and you see it in their face and the way that they're speaking, like he's just so like pompous about how he is like, oh, this is what it is. Like, I know, like blah, blah, blah. Bro, you're not humble at all. The minute you're not humble is the minute you're opening yourself up to demonic influence. And so when you start to be an authority, like he's obviously become some level of an authority on this matter. And so of course he's going to start being influenced or suggested by demons. So everything he's seeing is getting filtered by something demonic whispering in his ear, because he's got the spirit of pride already talking to him. And so like he's now, his perspective of what information is he's believing is being filtered through a demonic lens of pride. And so he's going to get a distortion, like no matter what. And like, and that's, so anybody that's talking with 100% certainty like that, like you can just pretty much be like, yeah, I'm not going to even believe what you're saying. You can pretty much be like, okay, I'm going I'm going to throw your idea out the window. Or like, I'll take it with a grain of salt. Interesting concept. You're probably demonic. You're probably wrong. You're probably being, and especially when you're talking about these subjects, because of course the demons don't want you to think that they're demons. Okay. Like, of course they don't. And I can tell you, of course they want this dude that's pretending to be some authority telling you guys, don't worry. They're actually physical bodied object entities. Now they may be demonic in nature, but listen.
Right. Yeah.
Like,
That's very confusing. That's very confusing. Cause it's kind of like that.
They're not real bodied entities. They're demons.
The paradigm,
and they can physically appear.
I mean, because I think that's what people have. A lot of people have said, and this is why a lot of the early, people I grew up with, like my parents and stuff, they never would have believed in aliens because they do realize that shakes up the biblical paradigm.
Yeah,
like what do we do with these other beings from different places? Like because if the Bible is a story of the heaven and earth. Well, how does that relate to these a far off galaxy? It really doesn't. I mean, like, I think that some people would have to say, it's like, I remember early on, thinking like, well, I mean, if God is omnipotent, he could do more things at once. But obviously at the same time, I believe that could still be true. I mean, God could be doing something somewhere other place we don't know about. But I think that it doesn't seem like in God's character that he would have outside influences that don't relate to the story that we live in. That the one he created about his son in the redemption of humanity.
To believe
these other beings that are just like, well, they're just going to interfere and they're going to just kind of do their own thing, and like God's not going to have any say in that. That doesn't make sense. And I think that one thing about Alberino specifically is that, yeah, I remember I've heard him say things that I said he's made me think, and I've actually kind of considered some of the things he said, and I've liked some of the things. Later, I kind of was like upset about what he said, and then I looked back and I was, he really might have been onto something. But more often than not, now when I listen to him, I'm like, yeah, he's talking about things he could not know for certain, and I think that is the thing that's always drove me nuts about like academia and like the science community, and they just speak with so much certainty. And it's like I've got my parameters that I've established as facts, and then I can work inside that. And it's like I'm going to act like I know everything. Well, the problem is like that when you see what the science and the academia do, is like they make these crazy assumptions, and then they go with that as fact, and then everything else that works in between there. Now the thing with Alberino is like that. How you would know things based on in the field we're in. Okay, it's in the Bible, right? We could say for sure, like, this is what the Bible says, so I believe it, and I'm not going to, we could question interpretations, but I'll say this is why I believe this. Or you could say it's in the Apocrypha, and I believe this to be true. I believe this is scriptural. It's not in the canon of books that we have now, but I still believe it. Because Brian, I would fall in those categories.
Yep.
I've experienced it. I was there and I saw it. I touched it, whatever. But then outside of those things, right?
Well, there's two others. I would say there's also other people's experiences that we believe, right? And that's
right. But I would still say that you like, I mean, obviously, you could have
and then we
first-hand witnesses like that you find super reliable. But I would still even caution people on that, because it'd be like, that if I believe you, Brian, I can't expect you to believe me because I believe him.
Yeah, exactly.
So I would have to say, this is what my friend said, and I believe him and I trust him. And so because I'm not taking that into, like, if Tim Alberino says that some guy he knows, that ain't good enough for me.
Yeah, well, he said
and I think that he should be like in the kind of way that you should be able to say that, because why would anyone believe that? You know what I'm saying? Like, because you're talking about world paradigm, like a literal paradigm shift in the belief of, are we alone in the universe, or versus like there's other places that are just, just like, those are crazy concepts. So like to say that I'm going to take some person's word from it, that's not even you.
Yeah.
It's somebody else.
Well, that's terrible, because he's literally talking about this girl who had an experience where she grabbed the alien by the throat, and then he's like, bro, I want to see the girl. I want to see the girl tell me that story, because I want to evaluate if that girl's a liar. You know what I mean? Like, I want to evaluate how true that girl's story is. Like, you believed her, but I don't trust that you even have a good perception of what is true or not, Tim. So, like, you know what I mean? Like,
well, you know
congratulations.
how easy it would be. Like, let's just say, okay, so we have everybody knows the stuff we talk about. If you guys have seen Ancient Angels, you could imagine the kind of people that would DM us and want to tell stories.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so with us having no discernment, but we want to make content, you could run with that. You know what I'm saying? You could run with that and say that, and I'm not saying that he is necessarily, but I'm saying that he would have to.
He is.
Okay, Brian's saying he is. But I'm saying like that's when we talk about like that. If you want to sell books, you could believe anybody, and then you could make content based on all the people. And guess what? If you start believing crazy, you're gonna have there's gonna be no end to the crazy that you can hear and repeat, and then say, hey, well, I find this source reliable. I mean, because outside of that, it's like either you just made it up, or like I said, you could shake the crazy tree and a lot of crazy would fall out, and then you could say, oh, look, here's my proof right here. I got this eyewitness, and I think that, to me, I feel like this, and I think this is the one reason I guess maybe we could be kind of critical of him right now, is that many of us who do this kind of research that we do, for one, trusting NASA, because obviously they have to do that a lot to come to some of the conclusions they come to.
Yeah.
The coming, or not even just the coming, like the alien deception in the conspiracy community is obviously something we're talking about. We've talked about. We're prepared for. I mean, I don't know how prepared we are for it, but I mean, it does seem like if you go, like we talked about Werner von Braun on the last couple of podcasts, and he talked about like the deceptions coming. Like the last card they were playing was like the alien card. And of course, you go into like Aleister Crowley. I mean, Aleister Crowley is like the one who famously said, "Today we call them angels and demons. One day they're going to call them something else." And then so I believe we're in that day where they're calling them something else. They're different entities. They're different dimensional entities. They might not even be from here, but they're not from outer space. Like, you know, so now you're talking about, okay, does that not sound like the Bible does talk about other entities that are not really in the realm that we are, don't live in the same kind of plane as we do.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's biblical. And so with guys like him who do have a biblical worldview or talk about, you know, shape people's biblical worldviews, he is potentially adding to when the deception comes, or, you know, if it comes, that will be a big part of like that lots of people will believe in the cryptid stuff, and they'll say, well, if I believe in Bigfoot, then it's not too far of a leap to believe in a gray alien. And if I believe in a gray alien, maybe there's good aliens because these ones are the bad ones. And so now, like I said, you really kind
of, all a perversion of
it's
the Bible.
confusing.
If you know
like it's
the
confusing.
Truth. And well, the thing is, like, you really got to understand that, like, Tim's perspective again stems from pride. So even if somebody was to tell him a story, his pride's going to be like, oh, I got this amazing story. Look who I'm going to share this. Like, you see what I'm saying? Like, bro, you can't, if your revelations are stemming from pride, you're obviously not spiritually aware. Your discernment is like, bleh. Like, you don't have discernment. Okay. Like, you gotta know, like, dude, there's so many videos. I don't make tons of videos if you guys don't notice, because like I have to pray a whole lot before I make my videos and be like, Lord, do I make this? Is this right? Is this true? Is this what I'm supposed to put out? You know? And like, but like, dude, if you're just like chasing theories and stuff like that guy is, like, bro, you're going to get all kinds of willy-nilly distractions, and you're going to have all kinds of perspective that's whack, and you're going to be like totally off. You're going to be totally off. And he's off, I think, clearly. And his perspective does not, like, if you follow all these trails the right direction, it leads you very clearly to the trail of the Nephilim, and it leads you very clearly to the trail of angels and demons. And if you follow the trails correctly and you use your discernment, you will come to the conclusion that demons are real and all of this is demonic. All the roads point to it, and you realize it very clearly. But his direction is leading you down another path that's not towards demons. It's towards thinking that they're physical bodied entities. Bro, it is a demonic deception. This man is being listened to by demons. He's being influenced by demons. There's demons talking to the guy. guiding him in a different direction to guide you, to mislead people. Of course, Satan's going to attack people like us that are in positions of authority. And if you're not spiritually being, sound or seeking the Lord truly with your heart, like, you can easily get deceived. So yeah, that's all I got to say. Next video.
No, that's good. All right. Well, we're going to end with this last one. I think this is actually, again, this somewhat relates. It's not an alien thing, but this might bring us back to the truth of what this stuff is. Okay. This is, Brian, I don't know if you've seen this one. I think this is like hot off the presses, bro. Like this is going to be an interesting one here.
In my bed at night, I got attacked while I was asleep with my wife and 4 dogs in the bed and mauled, physically mauled.
In a spiritual attack by a demon?
Yeah, by a demon.
Whoa.
Something unseen that left.
Is that right?
Claw marks on my sides. On my
left physical mark.
Oh, they're still there. Yeah. I was totally
Oh my gosh.
couldn't breathe. And then I had these terrible pains when I had 4 claw marks on either side underneath my arms and on my left shoulder. And they're bleeding.
Wait, they were bleeding?
They're bleeding, yeah. No, they're actual claw marks. And I sleep on my side, so I wasn't clawing myself. I don't have long nails. And they didn't fit my hands anyway. So I called my assistant, who was like the only evangelical Christian I know, call with something bizarre like that. She said, oh yeah, no, that happens. Yeah, people are attacked in their bed. What? What are you even talking about?
See the full clip at christianitiesmovie.com.
Dude, love it. That's
How about that, bro? Like, I mean, of course, I've talked about Tucker a lot. Brian's talked about Tucker a lot. I mean, that's crazy. I mean, like, obviously, again, this obviously does kind of fit into all the things he's been saying, but like, yeah, the acknowledgement of like, not only, I mean, I said I've had encounters with demons in my room. I've never had anything physical like that where it left marks on me. But Brian, I think you have stories about that kind of stuff.
I've seen it. I have witnessed it. I've been involved in these situations, bro. I had some crazy stuff, bro. I literally had somebody called me at 2:00 in the morning because her daughter was completely possessed and had slit her wrists and was holding a knife. And I FaceTime. She didn't know what to do. Calls me at 2:00. I'm like, oh my gosh. And like turns the camera and the demon is looking at me with a knife and her slit wrist of the daughter, bro. Like I've seen the most like insane stuff, dude.
Wait a minute, you saw a demon with a knife holding a knife, or you saw
the girl physically had a knife and was not herself. She was like, oh, okay. Her eyes were like rolled back in her head and her wrists were bleeding and she had slit her and she was like and started like talk, and I'm like, I start rebuking the thing. She comes to and is like, what, where am I? And she's like totally out of her place, bro. She doesn't even know where she's at. She's like, what happened to my wrist? And like she's like starts freaking out because something was in her body, slit her wrist. Like, bro, crazy.
Man, so what is your thought process when you hear Tucker say it? He was saying that it was not him who did it.
Oh, bro, like,
you think it was him that did it?
This is what I will come to. This is a really in-depth subject, because what happens is demons will possess the person, do the thing to them, and then unpossess the person. And you don't know how it even happened. And they do it in like crazy ways. Like they will unnaturally bend people. I've seen people bend in ways that I didn't think humans could
it's
bend.
Interesting. There's that one kind of like, I won't say it's a meme, but it's like something you see in the culture a lot, is like this pose where like the back is bent, like arched. Like, that's like that. That's like a completely demonic pose, like that you see that like in a lot of places, right?
I've seen I've seen someone get lifted up off the ground before. I've seen. Well, that's
twice. Like, I mean, I know you didn't watch that show, but that show Stranger Things, one of the last seasons, they had this demonic character called Vecna, and it was like it went. You know, like Stranger Things went from like a story about Camp Hero to just like a slasher film toward the end, and this character or this demon basically would possess them, and they would like levitate, and then all their bones would crack, and he would bend them all up in pretzels and kill them.
Whoa!
Yeah, it was. I mean, it got really, really, really dark. It was not pleasant to even watch.
Wow. Yeah. No, I've seen. Okay, so demons are very weak in the physical realm. They're very weak. Okay, but they can do a few physical things. All right, very few. But they want to possess a person because when they get in control of a person, then they can cause damage. And so the reality is, like, people call me because they're like, oh my gosh, like, my house, there's something every night I hear footsteps in my attic, and like this door slams and shuts. Demons can do physical things. The most they can do is scratch people. I've heard of them scratching people, and I've seen it, and I've dealt with it. Right?
So you think it's possible that he did get scratched by something other than himself or his wife?
Well, I was making 2 points. So there's 2 points. Like, one, there is both scenarios are possible. So demons have physically moved stuff, and I've seen and been a part of things, and I've seen someone come up off the ground once. Okay. And then a second time I seen them come up so high, they were on their tippy toes and they were being spun in circles. Okay. Like, and that was like, I don't know how somebody could stand on their tippy toe like a ballerina and just like they're arched backwards and like started rotating. Like, and that was like unreal. Like, seeing that was pretty gnarly. But so like those things physically demons can do, but it takes a lot of energy and a lot of effort. And I've dealt with scratches in places that are beyond what a person could reach. Like, I've seen somebody that was like bigger, couldn't reach behind their back at all, but woke up with like claw marks down their back. And so like these kind of things are absolutely within the realm of what demons can do. But again, that's the extent of what demons can do. Anything beyond a scratch or moving stuff or slamming a door or moving a chair or opening all the drawers and windows in a house. Like, I've seen this kind of stuff. Like, beyond that, usually it requires the demon to possess the person, do the act, and then leave the person, and the person has no clue how it happened. But then this is because they became fully possessed in that moment and did the thing. And then they're like, I woke up with this on me. And they don't realize that it was them that did it to themselves, because it wasn't them. It was completely not them. You lose track of time.
You think about it, like, so if you guys have ever seen the movie Fight Club, it's like Edward Norton did not realize that he was Brad Pitt too. Tyler Durden and spoilers, guys. Tyler Durden was beating, they were getting into fights. And so he would come up beaten up, and he obviously had beaten himself up. Like, that's what the whole movie is about, is like that he's possessed by this demon. Of course, they don't present it in that kind of way, but that's what it's showing you. So going back to what Tim Alberino says, this person has this vivid memory of this thing happening. Like, you'd have to almost conclude, like you said, with humility, if he said it in the way that, like, this is what I was told, but I was not there. So I think that is obviously it's very common when you hear about UFO, alien abductions and this stuff. People lose time. They come back bruised and obviously violated in certain kind of ways. But you have to remember too, it's like that if these demons could do these things, they could also implant false memories about what happened.
That was the second thing I was going to tell you. The one of the most prolific things I've seen demons do is take your memory. And I have seen this firsthand. A guy witnessed one of his best friends or whatever. We were praying. He totally full on demon possessed manifested, started speaking Arabic. Okay. This white kid. All right. And like doesn't know this stuff, dude. And, starts speaking different languages and like starts like talking with different voices. And his friend, who wasn't a believer, witnessed this whole exorcism experience. And halfway through, the demon possessed guy goes over to the friend and touches him on the forehead. He goes, boop. And the friend's eyes, I watched his eyes go like, what are you doing? And then all of a sudden when he touched him, he went. And then like afterwards, he was kind of like still there, but not fully there. The next day we talk about, hey bro, like, how's your friend doing? And he's like, oh, he's fine. And I'm like, what do you mean he's fine? He just was like freaking throwing up and like speaking different languages. He's like, no, he wasn't. And I'm like, what? I'm like, what do you mean? No, he wasn't. And like me and the other person with me, there was 4 people. We all saw this, but the friend of the guy did not and could not remember almost any. He was like, well, I remember he was making noises.
That's like some Men in Black stuff. That's like the Will Smith
thing,
showing the flash thing. And people are like,
It's so real. Yeah, it's so real. And I've seen it happen. And like, he remembered some parts of it. He was like, well, I remember him making like noises, but he wasn't like talking in another language or another voice. I'm like, yeah, he was like straight
doing
up.
all those things, doing all those things.
Do you need to talk to the other person that was in the room? Because they'll confirm everything as well. Like, I'm like, bro, like, and he was like, but he doesn't really remember it. Yeah, because he wasn't in his body. Like it was just like a totally different thing. Took over his body and started speaking through him. And he's like, dude, it's crazy. So demons will wipe memories. Demons can plant false memories. These are the two things that I've seen demons do unequivocally. Like, this is the best skill.
Isn't that kind of interesting when we talk about MK Ultra and all the stuff that they did and what their goals were literally to erase memories, to implant false memories. Like that was two of the goals of that program.
That's the most powerful skill that demons have. I'm going to tell you right now. Like, people are afraid of like demons, like stabbing you or killing. Dude, they can't even do that. You know what they could do though, is erase your memory and then stab yourself. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
well, yeah, you know, you think about the depravity where it's like these people are these things are taking residence in your person, and yeah, obviously they're clearing it out. They're clearing out the good stuff, and they're putting all the bad stuff in there. But I want to end with this because we probably have gone a little bit long, but I found this interesting, and I'm sure you probably heard this, Brian. I read this on Twitter the other night, or on X, whatever you want to call it. Oh yeah, by the way, follow us on X at JT follows JC and at Demon Racers. But yeah, I was reading that, and I've heard this before. Only 50% of people have basically an inner monologue in their heads. Have you heard that, Brian?
Oh yeah.
Do you think that's real? Because I was just thinking about that, like that. Okay, so what I would call an inner monologue would just mean me thinking. So it's like horrifying to me to hear that people don't have an inner monologue of almost like this kind of voice in your head, like rationalize things and making sense of things. I mean, I wonder if, sometimes I'm like thinking like, is this the Holy Spirit talking to me? Is this, you know, like trying to say, hey, that's a bad idea. Do not do that. and I'm it's not like I hear words, but I'm like, I'm thinking in words.
Yeah.
I'm not just thinking. And so I actually, of course, I asked ChatGPT, is that true? I was like, so how do those people think otherwise? And it's like images and feelings. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And I said, of course, the next question was, I said it in the most PC way possible. Is that a disability? Because it sounds like a disability if you only think in pictures and emotion. Point being is like that I don't really want to believe that, but at the same time, if that's true, it makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense that why we live in a culture where like you have these awful shepherds leading sheep to the slaughter. You have all these NPCs just repeating the same broken phrases and just like believing the news still. Like, it makes sense if you're not actually thinking in like a real rational inner monologue you're just speaking.
I mean, I would say that I think we all have the inner thought process and the inner monologue to some degree, but when you experience trauma, it disables that. And then you can't function anymore. And then the demons, this is how demons talk to you. In fact, I would go so far as to say that like 90% of your thoughts are not your own. 90%. I would say you have about 10% of your own thoughts. I would say the rest of them are from something demonic. Feeding your flesh is even demonic. It even said, like Jesus said it, he said, get thee behind me, Satan, for you do not have the concerns of God in mind, but merely human concerns. That tells you Satan gives you human concerns. So like the human concerns are demonic, I think, in a lot of cases. And then you've got because you can deny your human concerns. You can literally deny them. And then once they leave, you're like,
obviously that's what being Christian is, getting up, denying yourself.
Yes, denying your flesh.
The cross and walking in faith.
Yeah, exactly. And so like the human concerns are demonic.
Dying to yourself. Yeah, die to yourself. Mm-hmm.
Yep. And so I'd say you have about, on average, 10%. Maybe it's a little bit more in some people, and that range can determine. But the majority of people's thoughts are demons suggesting ideas to you, and you think they're your own thoughts, and they suggest them to you through feelings, through thoughts, through words, however they can get them to you. And they want to put those things into you, into your perspective. And when you recognize what demons, how they talk, how they're communicating, and this is how I, operate in the gifts of the Spirit. Actually, I operate in what's called discernment of spirits, and it's in the Bible, and it's a gift. I speak to them in my mind when I'm praying for people. Demons will have conversations with me about the person in my mind. And like I'll know things about the person because the demon will say it, and then I'll say it out loud by my mouth, and the person's like, "How do you know that?" And I'm like, "Well, the demons talk, like the demons in you telling me stuff." And so this is how I discuss them, and like this is how communication operates. It's in your mind, and so like some of those thoughts are demons, and some of them are the Holy Spirit. Like when you pass a homeless person, and your heart says, "Hey, give that person money," and you're like. And then your brain has to go, I'm not going to give them money. Why would I give them money? Like clearly they're on crack, right? That first thought was the Lord. That first thought helped them was the Lord. You denied it with your own flesh thought. Okay. But the initial thought was, I should help that person. That's the Lord talking to you. Like, and that's the angel of the Lord or God or Holy Spirit speaking to you. But we deny it with our own thoughts, or demons will come in and say, nah, shut up. Don't listen to that. Stupid. That guy's on drugs. You don't know what he's going to do with the money. Don't give it to him. Like that's the demon. And like, that's how your thoughts battle. We battle not against flesh or blood, but against spiritual powers and rulers in high places. Like it's in your head. Like it's always in your head. And so there's certain people that can hear the voices more clearly, and there's some people that can't. And when I deal with people like schizophrenic people, they hear the voice in their head talking, and they know it's not them. So clear. It's like crystal clear to them. And people look at them and they're like, oh, that's a problem. Like, oh, you got a disability because you hear it too clear, right? And so then there's people that hear it not at all. And you're like, oh, that's a disability because you don't hear it at all. Like, yeah, but it's still affecting you, right? And so we think normalcy is the people that don't hear the voices so clear that they can recognize that they're not them. And we think the people that don't hear them so clear that they can't recognize them at all, right? And so like I talk to people when I'm praying for people, I'll ask them because I'll hear the demon talking in the person, and I'll be like, can you hear the voice inside you? And I have to ask them all the time. And they're like, what do you mean? And I'm like, well, it's talking right now. And it just said this. And I'm like, did you hear that? And they're like, oh my God, they're like, how did you know that I heard that? I thought that was my thought. And I'm like, that's a demon. Like, that's not your thought, because how the heck did I know what it said? Right. Like, do you see what I'm saying? Like, it doesn't make sense that I'm going to know what your thought was. And I'm telling you, it's because that's how demons speak. They speak in these sort of very clear ways that are through your thoughts and emotions. And so like, yeah, I mean, this is a really complicated subject. I would go on forever if you really want to talk about it.
We should probably end it here, but yeah, that's interesting. I guess that's a lot to digest, is that the whole alien, demon, angel dichotomy. I mean, obviously this gives you a lot to think about, but I mean, I would say that just based on biblically, the aliens they're not physical entities. Like, even though I think angels can manifest physically, but I would say that, yeah, like it does not mean there can't be physical results to these things. Obviously, as Brian has told you, that, but again, like it's interesting. Yeah, again, it's like people's memories. And as everyone knows that, they always say like there's three sides to every story. It's like my side, your side, and actually the truth. Because our memories are not always accurate. People
and they're manipulatable.
Oh yeah, exactly. And things change, and it's like we all know that to be true. We all know that to be true. Except for mine. Mine is completely accurate.
Yeah, exactly. Yours and Tim's. Tim Alberinos is perfect.
Right.
No, but the other thing I'd say is like, when it comes to this kind of stuff, like physicality of demons, like there may be the physicality component to demons. There is some Nephilim-esque potential where they could physically manifest into a body that is tangible for a moment. Okay. And this may be a certain level of demon, a certain remnant of a demon, or it could even be a remnant of a Nephilim-esque body that is physical, that the demon inhabits, that they use almost like a remote control. And then that thing, it's just, they go in and out of the body. And I've heard many stories about people saying that demons will possess these body, and they've seen bodies of the alien bodies lying in a pile in the corner of some ship. I've heard people tell stories about this where they get into them. Yeah,
I do leave room for the possibility that there are alien beings inside the Earth, and I mean I use it in the classical definition of alien. They're not from here. They're not from the surface of the Earth. They live in a place that's otherworldly to us.
I'd say they're genetically modified beings from this planet.
It could be, but I mean, like I said, if you really think about it, it's like genetic corruption could still exist, which I believe it does. To what level? I don't know. And you really do think about it. I said, I remember I brought this up at one point. Was that movie called The Time Machine, I believe, and it had Guy Pearce in it. Did you ever see that, Brian?
Yeah. There became two different races of people.
There was beings, there were humans, and they lived inside the Earth for too long. And then they became like these bloodthirsty things. And they actually created almost a genetic race of superhumans just to get them food, which the food was the people.
It was the normal.
I mean, it was so creepy that I was just like, oh my gosh, that actually seems like like kind of like what we're dealing with here, because there is this kind of thing. So that is almost like in some kind of way, that's a physical demon, you know, because like I said, if you really think about it, like that's what a Nephilim was. It was a physical demon.
Yep.
Because
exactly
when it dies, it will become a spirit. And it won't be like that. But so like there is a kind of thing. So that's the whole point of like why demons are so awful, is because they were that awful when they were alive. You know, like that's the stories of like why God had to destroy the earth with the flood, is because that's the kind of thing that was manifest physically in flesh form on the earth. So like to what kind of level could that still exist inside the earth? Obviously, it's funny that we basically go back to what we started with, all the weird stuff that's inside the domes, the caves, the underground cities, all the weird stuff. There's a lot of secrets. There's a lot of mystery inside the earth. And honestly, I don't think I want to know all of it. Some things are better left like unknown. Like you find out, it's like, oh gosh, that was real dark. I'm glad I didn't find that out when I was still alive.
there is so much dark evil, guys. Like I smile all the time, but like, and I'm a pretty happy person, but man, guys, if I told you the amount of evil that I've seen and experienced and like heard, it's like not even worth talking about. Like
no. I think that's the thing. It's like, that's why I think that hopefully when we do these podcasts, that's why we can like throw in a light video every now and then, because it doesn't need to be demons all the time. It doesn't need to be aliens and demons and cryptids and stuff all the time, because that stuff does get a bit dark and it gets morose. I don't want to go that way, but anyways, Brian, you got anything else to close us out with?
That's it, man. It was just be operate in love, guys, and be discerning, and don't just believe everything, and always check people that when you're hearing, like, hear if they're operating in love, and if they're not operating in love and they're operating in pride, question it.
Well, ask them. Actually, first go to them and ask them a question. See how they react when you ask them questions in like a very a loving way. But guys, once again, if you guys have video submissions, best way, like I said, would be to go on X and send us the videos via either DM, or you can just openly post them and put hashtag JT's mixtape, and we'll try to feature some of these videos. Otherwise, guys, I appreciate you guys hanging with us. Once again, like, share, subscribe. Brian's links in the description. Love you guys.